I didn't correct my coworkers when they assumed I was childless. It started during lunch on my third day at the new job. Everyone was talking about weekend plans and someone asked if I had kids. Before I could answer, my supervisor laughed and said, "She's way too put together to have kids. Look at her nails." Everyone laughed. I just smiled and changed the subject. The truth was, I had a daughter, Lila. She was 7 years old and the center of my entire universe. But something about that moment made me hesitate, made me stay quiet. See, my last job didn't end well. I was a top performer for 3 years until I had to leave early one day because Lila got sick at school. Then again, when her daycare closed unexpectedly. Then again, when she broke her arm on the playground. My boss called me into his office and said mothers were a liability, said I'd never be management material because my priorities were divided. I was let go 2 weeks later for performance issues. So when my new coworkers assumed I was childless, I let them believe it. At first, it felt like survival. I needed this job. The salary was double my last position, and the benefits were incredible. I couldn't afford to be seen as unreliable before I'd even proven myself. But then something shifted. I started getting invited to after-work drinks, happy hours, weekend brunches. My supervisor began mentioning me in leadership meetings. She told me I had executive energy and recommended me for a management training program. 6 months in, I got promoted. My coworkers threw me a party and someone made a toast about how refreshing it was to work with someone who was fully committed to their career. I smiled and raised my glass while my stomach churned. Every morning, I dropped Lila at school and kissed her goodbye. Every evening, I picked her up and helped with homework. Every night, I read her stories and tucked her in. But at work, she didn't exist. I kept 2 separate phones, 2 separate lives. I told Lila that mommy's job was very important and very private. She was too young to understand, but she nodded anyway. Then last Tuesday happened. I was in a meeting with our CEO presenting a proposal I'd worked on for months. This was my moment. The promotion I'd been building toward for 2 years. My personal phone buzzed in my bag. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. The CEO noticed and raised an eyebrow. I apologized and silenced it. After the meeting, I had 11 missed calls from Lila's school. My hands went cold as I listened to the voicemail. Lila had collapsed on the playground. She was being rushed to the hospital. They needed a parent immediately. I ran out of the building without telling anyone, drove to the hospital, breaking every speed limit, found Lila in the emergency room, hooked up to monitors. Turns out she had a heart condition nobody knew about. She needed surgery. That night, I sat beside her bed holding her hand for 6 hours while doctors prepared. I didn't check my email, didn't respond to my supervisor's texts asking where I'd disappeared to. The surgery was successful. Lila was going to be fine. But when I finally looked at my phone the next morning, I had a message from HR. My supervisor had reported my sudden disappearance as job abandonment. There was an emergency meeting scheduled for my return. I walked into that meeting ready to lose everything again. My supervisor sat across from me with HR on either side. She asked where I'd been, why I'd left without notice, why I'd ignored all communication for over 12 hours. I took a breath and told them the truth. My daughter had emergency heart surgery. I was at the hospital. I've had a daughter this entire time. The room went completely silent. My supervisor's face cycled through confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like betrayal. You lied to us. You let us think you were childless. I didn't lie. I just didn't correct the assumption. That's the same thing. HR asked why I'd hidden my daughter. I explained everything. The previous job, the discrimination, the fear of being labeled unreliable before I could prove my worth. My supervisor shook her head. I recommended you for leadership because I thought you were dedicated. Turns out you've been deceiving us for 2 years. I looked at her. I am dedicated. I've exceeded every metric, delivered every project, earned every promotion. My daughter's existence doesn't change any of that. She didn't respond. HR said they'd need to discuss next steps. I was placed on administrative leave pending review. I went home and hugged Lila for a long time. She asked if I was sad. I told her I wasn't sure. Yesterday I got the call. I wasn't being fired, but I was being removed from the leadership track. My supervisor said she couldn't trust someone who'd hidden something so fundamental about their life. I asked if my work quality had ever suffered because of my daughter. She admitted it hadn't. I asked if I'd ever missed a deadline or underperformed. She said no. Then I asked why my daughter's existence mattered more than my actual performance. She hung up.